Hello friends, it's Tanya, and today I am back with more fun with the January 2021 My Monthly Hero Kit. I do think this kit is the bee's knees. It is amazing. I did pull out the filigree frame hot foil plate again from Spellbinders, and I'm going to use the polished brass foil again, and I'm going to try to cut a little snip in the foil with my scissor and just tear it with along the edge of this metal ruler. Turns out I didn't cut that snip straight enough, so I'm just going to use my scissor and finish cutting that off. That foiling plate is about 5.5 inches long, so I measured, or it's about 5 inches long, so I measured the foil and to make that snip. This is a 5x7 piece of yellow cardstock, and I put that on top. You make sure you put your foil toward the shiny side facing the plate. It did get a little overfoiling. I left it on the heating platform for too long because I was busy doing my sentiment in the meantime. Multitasking sometimes gets the better of me. I'm using my favorite stitched rectangle die. This is an A7 stitched rectangle die from Honeybee Stamps. And now we're going to take this gorgeous floral from the January 2021 My Monthly Hero Kit. It's just gorgeous, and it's big. This is a piece of craft cardstock that is 3.5 by 7 inches, and I'm treating that with my anti-static powder tool, which is, you know, a sock that I put some cornstarch in. Super easy. Next time, I'm not even going to stitch the other end shut. I'll just clip it shut or tie it shut with a ribbon, because then I can refill it and not have to sew things again. Back to the image. We are going to do this 3 times because I want to get a good solid inking so I can get a beautiful embossed image, because we're not really doing much more to this flower image. And I want that embossing to really showcase the flowers. We're going to heat set that till it's nice and smooth. Look at that. I think that image turned out beautiful. And I used some Hero Arts gold embossing powder. In this kit, you also get dies for all of the images. So this is the coordinating die for the flowers. I'm just going to tack that down with my washi tape and run that through my die cutting machine. I also cut a piece of white pearlescent cardstock because we're going to do a little bit offset layering here, because I wanted a white shimmery edge on this. So I'm just going to slide it down a little bit. There's maybe 1/8 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch, yeah, probably overhang. We're also going to use the Concord 9th Everything Birthday, or all the birthdays die set and stamps. I love this HB die that comes in that set. It's gorgeous. So I also die cut that from, well, I die cut it with the yellow glitter cardstock that came in the My Monthly Hero Kit, and I cut it also out of some coaster blanks because I wanted a little dimension on this. And I'm just going to glue those together and set those aside while I work on other elements of the card. There's also a banner in that die cutting set, and I cut one out of craft cardstock that we're going to put the rest of the sentiment for the front of the card on. I'm going to use my Misty again for that. I tacked it down. Well, I didn't tape it. I just used the end of the magnet, or the edge of the magnet, after I'd centered the sentiment over the banner. I did end up restamping this later because it's a little too far to the right end of the banner, but you get the picture. Just make sure you center it on there properly. And that actually worked super slick. I did make a few extras to put in my stash for those moments when I just need a quick sentiment to throw on the front of a card, or a card that I'm trying to throw together quickly and want a sentiment. And I used the gold embossing powder on that one too. Now I'm going to take some little tiny blender brushes and some wild honey, and I think that's mustard seed distress oxides. I'm going to start with the mustard seed and add a little bit blending to each of the petals on the flowers. We're not going to do anything with the leaves, just the flowers. And I'm just carefully blending those so it doesn't go anywhere else. Then I'm going to take the even smaller blender brush and use the wild honey because that's a little bit more orange, a little deeper, and we're going to put those in the flower centers and blend out on some of the petals to add a little detail to this. Now after I'm done blending those, I bring my microfiber cloth in to carefully buff off the ink from the embossing lines so that they are nice and crisp again. And that turned out pretty awesome. We're going to take and layer that on the card front that we've already created. We're going to take the other elements and lay those out the way we want them. I want to get the placement just right. And before I adhere all of that stuff together, I take some Delicata ink. I think this is the Golden Glitz. And I'm going to stamp that on the inside, on each side of the inside of the card. And I had folded the card base inside out. So I stamped it on one side. I'll flip that over so that the other edge is also going to have these golden glitz flowers on the other side. I do like to decorate the insides of the cards. I think it just pulls the whole project together, and it kind of feels unfinished if I don't do the insides. And Golden Glitz, the Delicata ink, it is wonderful for creating a beautifully crisp image, and it has that shiny quality to it. There's plenty of shine on the front. I wanted to carry that through onto the back, inside of the card. Now I've already layered some coaster blanks on the back of the yellow cardstock here. I want a little dimension, but before I can do that, I need to glue the flowers on the bottom edge of this card. So I can trim off the excess because it would hang much too far off the sides. I'm just going to wipe the extra glue off the bottom. And I don't know why I keep gluing that before I'm ready to put it down, because that glue dries pretty fast and I don't want it to have lost its stick before I put it down. So I'm just going to trim off the extra flower bits that are hanging over the edge and glue this up one more time, and then we'll attach that to the card front and start getting going with the rest of the pieces. I had made this card once before, but the foiling was a little lower on the card, and it looks much better when it's closer to the top, so there's not quite so much empty space above the foiling. So both cards look great, but this one looks better. Trial and error. You always do better the second time. Now the HB, you know you have the H the right way when the crossbar lines up with the center of the two bumps for the B. That's the best way to figure out which way that H goes. I'm going to add a little bit of coaster blank to the back of this sentiment. I'm also going to use some double-sided tape and a strong one and the liquid glue, because we're gluing this over glitter paper, which is notorious for not being very easy to get to adhere. I had stamped and colored a boatload of these bees when I made my previous video for this kit. And so I have a bunch left to use on lots of projects. I figured I would have no problems using these up. Bees are such a popular motif, and they can be masculine or feminine. This card feels very feminine to me, but that's okay. And then we're going to add a couple more bees to the inside of the card. Why not? I have lots of them. And if I want more, they're super easy to stamp and color, and they die cut just beautifully also. Now we're going to move on to the next card. We're going to stamp the big flower bunch on a piece of white cardstock again, and I'm going to color it with my Copics. I am going with a couple of W, or the warm grays, and I'm putting down my darkest color first, and I'm just trying to create the look of a white flower, which you do by adding grays or really light tones. And I'm just doing it at the tips and the centers of the petals all the way around. And I'll come back with a lighter W. So I think I used WO and WOO on this. It's either that or W1 and WO. And then I added a little bit of R00 to the petals to add a little bit of a pinkness to it. I'm also using, I believe that is Y19, no, Y17 and YR24 for the centers. And then for the leaves, I think it's YG03, YG6, and YG7 I'm using for the leaves to add a very light springy green. And again, going darkest at the tips and the bases and working towards the lighter color in the middle. That first leaf I did looks very stripy on the camera here, but it's not in real life. It blends beautifully. For the branch, I'm using E35, and I'm coming back with the lightest yellow. I believe that's the YG03 to add a little bit of that spring greenness that you see on branches frequently. I saw that from Carrie Rhodes did that on actually this same image, and I loved it, so I had to incorporate it in mine. I did put some clear Wink of Stella over all of the petals on these beautiful flowers, and this branch of flowers just shines. Sorry about that. I have to keep clearing my throat. That, I am sorry, will not ever change with my asthma. We are doing a layer of coaster blank behind that flower image again. And now we're going to take the bee stamps and going to heat emboss them on another piece of 5x7 white cardstock. Because we're going to also heat emboss them. This time I'm going to use white satin pearl. So there's 3 different bee images in this stamp set. There's one with both wings open equally, and you're looking straight down at the back, and then one that's facing towards the right and one that's facing towards the left. And I am just taking each of those stamps and stamping them randomly around, kind of. I try to do the triangular pattern where you do 3 or 4 in triangular fashion, and then you come in with the next one, and just a random pattern in that way. I try to turn the stamps in different directions. You can't really see what I'm doing here, but just wait until I put the embossing powder on, and then you're going to be able to see these bees all over the pattern. Now this is a much bigger piece. Well, not much. It's a bigger piece than what I'm going to need, but by stamping this on a bigger piece, I can pick the sections that I like the best. Now I'm just checking at this point to see if I have gotten the bees all over the pattern the way I want it, and I see a few holes, so I'm going to go back with some more images and stamp those on there. And I haven't heat set this yet. I like to try to do just one run with the heat tool because it's less warping to the paper in the long run. We can always get the warping figured out, but it's nice to not have so much warping. Now I'm just going to heat set these, and you can just watch those little bees come to life all over this paper. This is one of my favorite things to do. I like to create a very subtle background by stamping it with Versamark and heat embossing in white satin pearl. Love that. I haven't done it in a while. So now I'm trying to plan where on that pattern piece of paper I want the image, and I'm using the flowers to help me decide that. I have a 5x7 card base here, and I did color that a few times. This is the one we're going to use, and I think we're going to go from left to right, bottom to top. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the inside of this card as I did on the previous one. In fact, I haven't even moved the image on my Misty. It's still in the same spot. We're going to use, this is Illuminate ink from Stampin' Up. It's old. I've had that ink pad for a long, long time. Versamark also has a Versamark Sparkle ink pad that I believe is the same thing, and highly recommend it. It creates a beautiful, it's like white satin pearl image without having to heat emboss. It is a pigment ink, so it does take a little longer to dry, but not terrible. I think I let that sit for just a couple minutes on the side of my desk, and then I was able to close it without it getting ink on the other side of the paper, like on, because it's folded against each other. And I did die cut that again, that white heat embossed B background with the A7 stitched rectangle die from Honeybee Stamps. Now I've adhered it to the card base. I already put a layer of the coaster blanks on the back of that also. And those are all adhered together. I'm going to adhere the dimensional flowers onto the front of that. And then I am going to take this sentiment that we created earlier, the one that was not quite centered, and I'm just going to trim off the one dovetailed end. I need to add a little extra dimension to make it all flush or even when I adhere it. And I'm just going to line that up with the edge of the stitched rectangle die cut element and have that. I try not to hide too much of the flower, so I pick a spot on that branch of flowers where I think that it looks appropriate for that sentiment to be, and then I'm going to add a bee to these flowers. Now I have, for some of them, I have die cut some chipboard with the same die, or sorry, coaster blank with the same die, but this time it's going to be partially over the flowers, so it's just easier to snip off a little piece and tack it under the part of the bee that's not over the flower. I love how these look like they're just about to land on the flowers. It creates a beautiful movement to them. Inside the card looks good. I don't think I'm going to add any bees to that one. So this is the third card we're going to make. And I had colored another branch of flowers and created a background. Oh, no, I think this background is not, all the layers are going to create all the beauty on this one. This time I wanted to use the Infinity Dies Hexagons to feature the sentiment for the front of the card. So I stamped the Sweet As Can Be in Versamark, of course, and I am heat embossing this one. I think I used the brass embossing powder from Hero Arts, and then we're going to take this die, which is close to the small end of the dies, and I'm going to die cut that quickly. Just going to trim that out a little. I don't like my scraps to go through the die cut machine very often because it gets scratches and stuff on it, because I am terrible about replacing my plates. I use them until they're about dead. And here is the base layer. It is another piece that is oh yeah, I did foil that one. I remember now. So that creates that elegant background. I put some coaster blank on the back of that. Yes, there's coaster blank on the back of this one. And this particular flower branch, the colors of the leaves are the same, but I did use some R00, I think it's, yeah, R00, R1, and R000 to color those flowers. And we're going to add 3 bees, one in each of the orientations that come in the stamp set. And they're going to be framing the sentiment, that awesome honeycomb hexagon. So I'm just adding a little bit of dimension behind the ones that are partially on the flowers and partially on the background. This is a very busy card. I have to admit that. Yes. So I laid that on there, and it looked nice. and I was just going to pop it up with some coaster blank and then rethought that. I pulled out this gold paper from the kit again. It's a nice, I think it's Brilliance Gold. I'm not sure what it's called, but it's a lightweight, like a layering weight, beautiful gold shimmery paper that has just a tiny, tiny texture to it, almost a linen texture to it. And I'm going to layer that behind the sentiment, and that infinity die set is just perfect. I think there's 17 sizes of hexagons in that set. We are going to I didn't put a layer of dimension between those two layers of hexagon, but I am going to put a layer of it behind the hexagons. I'm just going to use this die. This is how I get the same shape. I just use the same die, and this is the smaller of the two dies that I used. And die kit it out of the coaster blanks. I'm going to glue that to the back, and I was a little sloppy, so I'm going to realign that. And then I'm going to glue that to the back of to the card front. Adjust that a little bit. And then we have the inside with the Delicata ink. I believe that was the Celestial Copper. And that is all of the cards I created today. I hope you enjoyed them. If you have this kit, awesome. If you don't have it, it's totally sold out, and I'm sorry to say that. Please check out my other videos and check out the description box below. I have clickable links for all of the products that I used today. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please take a moment to do that for me. I would really appreciate it. And if you have any questions or comments, I am happy to see those below. Until next time, you guys all have a great day. Bye-bye.